Hey, boo, hey, you know what day it is. What day is it? It's Tuesday tea with D. Tuesday tea with D. Tuesday tea with D. Tuesday tea with D. It's Tuesday tea with D. You know, Tuesday tea with D. 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 Hey, boo, hey, it's your girl, Detra Trueheart, your life purpose generator, purpose provoker, your personal life coach, here with another weekly dose and serving of tea. Tuesday tea with D, that is. And today's conversation I feel like it's going to be really good. And it actually comes from a place of reflection for me. I have been doing some reading, more intense reading of the Bible lately. And the question that we're going to dive into today is God really first in your life? And only you can answer that question. And we're going to jump into that in a quick second. But we got to talk about the tea, honey. And so today's tea is what I've been drinking, I think, for the last couple of weeks. It is a ginger, cinnamon stick, and cloves tea with honey and lemon. And I don't know why I've just been on this, but I think from a health perspective, ginger is good for you. Cinnamon is good for you. Cloves are good for you. And so I've just kind of been here with this, right? And of course, it's good, child, because I've been drinking it like every day. What kind of teas do you drink, right? Are you a natural tea drinker? Are you into like making your own ginger tea, or do you like loose teas? Do you like the bag teas? Do you create your own bag teas? Like, I love now that I have bags that I can put my loose teas in. It makes it a lot easier, so I don't have to bring all the contraptions. You know what I'm saying? So that has been really cool. But let me know, right? Let me know down in the comment section what kind of teas you drink. What kind of flavors do you drink? Black tea? Do you drink green tea? Do you not drink tea? Do you drink just water? Or child, like what you be drinking, right? What's in your cup, right? What's in your cup? What's in your mug? So that's what I'm drinking. And what do we have going on? So we just, depending upon when you are watching this, we are coming out of Resurrection Weekend. And so this weekend was a good weekend. And, it's always good when we can remember and celebrate the resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And trying to think what else. Like, I'm normally not like, what's been going on? But nothing really has been going on other than we are in a new month. Right. So happy April. We're in April of 2024. We are officially in a new quarter. And so last week, if you remember, I asked you some questions around reflecting in Q1 and preparing for Q2. And so hopefully you did the work. And so I think I want to come back and have a real honest conversation around doing the work, because I think a lot of times we minimize the work that it takes in order to get the results that we want, right? And so like a lot of people, I think they think I'm a magician or something, and they forget that there's work that's required. And so my job as a coach is to really ask you questions that help you dig deep so that you can get the answers you desire. My job is not to give you the answers, right? My job is not to tell you the answer, right? And so I can tell you what the Lord is saying. I can tell you kind of from my perspective, but you got to live your own life, right? And so one of the things that I love about the way I coach is that my coaching is not cookie cutter, right? And so I'm not bringing you in to teach you like a 4-step program to do X, Y, and Z. It really is tailored toward your specific situation, where you are, what you have going on, and what God is saying, right? And so I'm not going to tell you to do something that God is not telling you to do, right? Sometimes I may make a suggestion and a client will say, well, I really feel like God has been telling me to do X, Y, and Z. And so then my question is well, then why haven't you been doing it? Or what does it look like for you to dive into that even a little more? Right. And so with that being said, it's a new month, which means that we have a new opportunity, or I should say you have a new opportunity to get in my space this month, to book your Get Started and Get Unstuck and Get Started 90-minute strategy session. I'm opening up my schedule this month, and really from here on out, the goal for me is really to touch 10 women each and every month, helping them to get out of their own way, helping them to show up for themselves, giving strategies, giving tools, giving safe space for them to kind of sit in some things that they have not had safe space to sit in, right? So you walk away with clarity, you walk away, with a sense of confidence around how you need to move. You walk away with a strategy, right? And a plan of action, and some tools to do, right? And so what you do with that is really up to you. And so if you want to take coaching even further beyond, the 90 minutes, and we can have that conversation. But initially, sometimes people don't need that. They really need you to sit with them and walk through like what it is that they need to do, what that looks like, how they need to do it, the resources that are required. And we don't do like, obviously you can't come with all the things for 90 minutes, but there are a lot that we can get done in 90 minutes. And so I want to encourage you to book your call. Go to trueheartspeaks.as.me/get started. It's $500 investment. And I just want to say, like, we have to get into a mindset of investing in ourselves. And one of the things that I heard a while ago, it's been a while, but I've heard it multiple times since I've heard it, is you really have to invest in where you want to go, right? Invest at the level of where you ultimately want to be, right? Sometimes we're investing in now, like you can't invest in lack. You can't invest in fear. You can't invest in struggle. Like you can't invest in that. Like you need to be investing in confidence. You need to be investing in strategy. You need to be investing like ultimately where you want to be, right? And so, whether it is, diving deeper spiritually, like what is the investment for that? Whether it's growing your business, what is the investment for that? Whether you want to lighten the load around your house, what is the investment for that? It's going to cost you. And so we have to start normalizing it. Things cost, right? And I don't care what the economy says, things cost. And if God is in it, he'll give you what you need to be able to do what you need to do to get to where he wants you to be. Point blank, period, right? And so a lot of us kind of use fear or lack or what hasn't been done before, the fact that we've never done it before, right? I remember the first time I made like my first real big investment. I was like, "Ooh, Jesus." But now it's like second nature to me, right? And so I want you to get into the habit of doing that, right? Making investments in yourself and really stretching yourself, because there are some things that you can't do for you, and there's some places you can't take you, and you want to be in spaces where people can in some spaces see further than you can see for yourself and help you get there, right? Whether it's spiritually, mentally, financially, professionally, in your business or your career, like you need to start making those investments, right? And so I don't know why I felt the need to share that. But go on ahead and book your strategy session. I'll be talking about this all month because I want to see you on my schedule for the month of April. And so I think that might be it right now. Oh, the other thing that I want to share before we go is I want you to join my text community, right? And so I'm going to put this here. I created something fun. So can you see that? Right. Oh, let me take all this other stuff down because I want you to be able to see this stuff here. Right. So before we jump into today's Tuesday Tea with D, I want you to join the text fam. You can text the word "hey" to 833-447-0492. And here's the thing, like I've been having conversation with a lot of people, and it seems like I know y'all check email and I want your email, but I feel like y'all check text more, right? And so when I send you a text message, and it might even just be, "Hey, check your email." But I want to, again, stay connected with you. And I want to make sure that, and I'll continue to say, you're going to hear me say it over and over and over and over and over again. Okay. But if social media goes away, if YouTube goes away, like if all the things go away, we still have email and we still have text messaging, right? Now, if those go away, child, I'm gonna have to reach out to you through Morse code, and that just means that I'm gonna have to learn Morse code to try to connect with you. But in this day and age, I want to use wisdom, right? And so while, yes, we get to connect on social media, and yes, it is a convenience, but I don't own that, right? But I can stay connected to you through text messaging. And even though I don't own the software, I do own, right, that list, right? And so as those emails and stuff come in, I have an opportunity to be able to connect with you. All right, so I feel like I've spent way too much time on that. I want to get to our conversation for today. Join the list, right? The text fam list. Go to 833-447-0492, make sure you book your strategy session for this month with me, right? 90 minutes with me could absolutely and can absolutely change your life. Okay, let me take a sip of this tea. Mm-mm-mm. Do y'all do that when stuff is good? Mm-mm-mm. Right, do a little shake and shimmy. All right, today's conversation. Is God really first in your life? Is he really first in your life? Like, I know we be like, oh, giving honor to God who's ahead of my life, or, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness and all of the things that we have, right? We quote the scriptures. But I really want to ask you, we're coming out of the high of the new year, right? We're transitioning to the second quarter. And so life is now like settling in. And we started out with 21 days of prayer. We're all excited, all that kind of stuff. And I just wonder, like, as the dust has settled, are you still as excited as you were when we did 21 days of prayer, when the new year started, when the new year kicked off? Like, where's your zest? But on top of that, is God really first in your life? And I'll just kind of give you some background of where this is coming from. Lately, I've been doing some reading, a lot of reading, a little bit more reading, and just the history. I'm in the Old Testament. I just finished the book of Joshua. I'm in Judges now. I'm almost done with Judges. And one of the things, and it talks about the pattern of the children of Israel, is like the Lord will say, hey, I'm giving you these rules. I'm telling you kind of like how to he's laying the land, right? As long as you do what I'm telling you to do, we're good. I'm sending you into this land. I'm preparing you to go into this land. But when you go into this land, do not take on the customs of the people in the land. And more importantly, those people are going to go away anyway, right? You're going to remove those people from that land. And so they get into the land and they're good. Even with Moses and Joshua, there was still some issues. But once Joshua dies off and there's this conversation around the people no longer really knowing the history of Joshua and what he did, they start to worship the gods of the people of the land. And there's kind of like this cycle of where they get caught up, worshiping the God of the land. God turns them over to the people who are in the land, because in Joshua, there are points where God says, go in and remove the people. And there's some instances where some of the tribes couldn't remove the people. And so they cohabitate. And so in some instances, they make the people slaves. And in some instances, I think the people just kind of like move further away from them. But they begin to take on the culture and mainly the worship. He tells them not to worship the gods of the people. And they do. They intermarry. They do all the things that God tells them not to do. And so I was intrigued, and I've been intrigued, because when we talk about idolatry, I think a lot of times most of us will say, well, yeah, God is first in my life. I don't have any idols. Like, I don't worship no idols and stuff. But I started to think, even just, and this was my own introspection around like work, around even rest and sleep. Now, y'all know I love rest and sleep, but lately my meditation has been, have I made rest and sleep an idol? Right. And not to say that I don't have my Bible time and my devotion time. Have I made my devotion time an idol, where I'm so focused on doing the work of reading the devotional, but I have yet to really read the Bible and study and just kind of sit in the presence of God. It has now become a task for me to do. And so I said, okay, well, if I'm having these thoughts, and I've been this way for years, since 2016, when I first started taking the first 3 days of the month off, which I'm currently doing now. As of the date of this recording, it is April 2nd, 2024. And so April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I'm offline, really to reconnect. And when I first started doing this back in 2016, it was literally a clarion call for me, because I was exhausted. I was tired, and I really needed something new, and I needed God to give me direction, and he did. And so I kind of like, I would just say, I won't say I fell off, but I won't say, because my lifestyle had changed a little bit, I didn't feel the need to always have to dedicate those first 3 days of the month to the Lord, because I was spending a whole lot of time with him. But lately in 2024, and really like last week and maybe a week or so ago, I felt the need to jump back into that and to do that for the rest of the year. And so I've already marked off for April, for the second quarter, April, May, and June. I'm looking at my dates and I'm offline those 3 days, doesn't matter what it is. And so if you're a part of my morning life scope crew, and if you are, let me know in the comments when you see this. You know, it didn't matter what day it was. It didn't matter when it was. If it was a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and if it was a first, a second, and a third, I didn't go live. I was not live at all. And so the blessing around, you know, doing a pre-recorded video like this is that I can still be live, or not live, but I can still record, not be online, not interact. My posts and stuff, business and stuff like that is still being scheduled, but I'm visual. I'm not online. And so I decided that, like, man, like, I think, and really, and I'm just talking this out with you the way that I did this for myself. I really started to think about some of the stuff that I was doing. Was I creating an idol? Was I putting it before God? And the simple answer was yes. In some instances, it was like, you know, I have this freedom and I have like this schedule where I could sleep, where I could do this. But I was also feeling this unction to go deeper in God, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll do it later. And I felt like, okay, like I said, if you've been with me for any time, if I'm feeling it, I know somebody in my tribe is feeling it. And so I wanted to bring this question to you, and I want you to ponder this question. And I really want you to sit with yourself to see if your work schedule, the community, the organization, the boards you serve on, maybe even your family has become an idol, right? And an idol is anything that we put before God. We may not consider it worship, but if it gets to a point where God is still getting scraps of our time, our energy, our money, then that means that he's not first, right? If you're not tithing, if you're not giving, if you're not doing what God is telling you to do, if you're not spending time with him and his word, or you're just giving him what's left over, then that means he's not first. I know, child. I had to deal with this myself, right? And so I'm really been thinking about the things that have been, and it's subtle. Like, it's subtle. It's not like you just decide like that God is going to be secondary to all the things that you have going on. We get caught up in life. Life starts happening and we start doing things. And then all of a sudden we realize, like, man, like, he's not really first. And so when I was reading about the children of Israel, and child, listen, it's some shadiness and some pettiness up in there, child. If you have not read it, you got to read it. You know what I'm saying? That's the real reality TV. But there's some things in there where it's just like, man, like, and it's funny because when you're like, man, like, how many times are y'all gonna keep like this cycle going? And I started to think, like, well, what kind of cycles you got going on, D? Because, honey. And so they would cry out to, so they would sin, God would turn them over to the people. The people would rule over them for, it could be 8 years, it could be 18 years, it could be 40 years. They would cry out to God, God would hear them. And that was one of the things that I really loved, was that, and I wish I had my Bible here, I would leave it and go away and get it, but I don't want to do that. But it says that, you know, he was sensitive, and that's not really the word that it was. I can't think of it exactly, but he was sensitive to their misery, right? Like, it bothered him that his people were in misery. And I began to think, like, wow, like, when we talk about, like, God really doesn't want us to be in misery, right? Like, when we self-inflict ourselves in misery, because that's really what happened. They were in misery because they disobeyed. And it's like, well, when you disobey and you put yourself in a space of misery, right? A miserable space, that when you cry out to God, it was literally like after they had cried out, because this last time that I was just reading, God was like, no, I'm leaving you there because, like, y'all, you don't mean it. And it was like, they said, okay, they turned away and then they repented, and it moved him because of their misery. And I said, wow, Lord, like, you really don't want your people to be miserable. And so in that, this is kind of this conversation that I'm having with you around, are we taking on the customs and the culture of the land that we live in, right? Even to some extent, Gideon, he had to tear down an altar that his father built for Baal, right? The worship of Baal or Baal, right? And so I don't know if it's Baal. I think it's Baal, or some people say Baal, Baal, right? At any rate. And so in order for Gideon to be able to, this Judges 6:6-8, you can read that. In order for him to be able to do what God was telling him to do, he had to tear down the altar and then build up another altar. And so then I began to think, like, what altars have our fathers and forefathers and mothers and foremothers, our ancestors in general, have they built up, right, in spaces that were meant for God, that we have to tear down in order, right, to put God back first where he belongs? And so I want to ask you that question. Like, are there some things, maybe your heart is pure, but maybe God is asking you to do an assignment. And maybe in order to do that, you got to put God back first in the generation and in the DNA of which you are, right? And be able to tear that down so that, for one, you can get victory. But for two, so that God can do what he needs to do through you and through, right, the generations to come. So ask yourself, right, take some time. And again, this is simple, but not really. Like, you really do need to sit with yourself. And even now, like for me, these first 3 days of the month, when I first started this back in January of 2016, it really was somewhat of like a tithe to God. And many of you who have been with me, you may have remembered me saying that, like, it's 30 days in a month. We want to tithe the first 3 days to God, right? To give him these days back, to be able to get direction on what we need to be doing for the month, how we need to be moving, what we need to be putting aside, all the things. And so in that, I want to encourage you, like, what is putting God first in your life look like? Are you feeling good about it? And let me know that too, right? So if you're feeling good about it and you're like, I feel like I'm, I want to check some things out, but I really feel like I'm good. But if I know it's a few of y'all in my tribe who's like, no, I need to get back to putting him first. And here, let me just tell you, if that means that you got to cut some stuff off, then you got to cut some stuff off, because God is not going to play second fiddle to anybody. God is not going to sit in the passenger seat, right? Or he's not going to sit in the back seat, let alone the passenger seat, because the reality is he's driving anyway and you in the passenger seat. And so, like, what areas of your life do you need to put God back first? Do you need to start, when we talk about discipline and we talk about commitment and we talk about focus, like sometimes you just have to make a decision. Sometimes you just have to make a decision that tomorrow, I'm going to make a decision that I'm going to put everything aside, or I'm going to make time for him. I may not have time. I may have to move some things around, but we can't continue like the children of Israel, putting God off to the side. And then when things don't go the way we want it to go, then all of a sudden we come back crying like, oh God, can you, and he's like, well, where you been? Where have you been? I've been here. Where you been at? And here's the thing, the way we move and the way God moves is not like the ways of culture and society. And so we have, and I think this is also why it's so important to be offline, because somebody like me who likes the bright and shiny object things, right? I'm like, ooh, that's nice. Ooh, that's nice. Ooh, I think I could do that. Ooh, 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 right? I had to pull away because I really need to be centering into where God wants me, what he wants me to be doing, and how he wants me to do it, who he wants me to do it with. And sometimes we can get off track looking at what everybody else is doing, forgetting. And some of us, we know what we're supposed to be doing, but everything else is telling us something different. And so we're not doing what we know to do because we're listening to everybody else. And so I want to challenge you to really go before God and ask God for May, if you need to join me and come offline for the first 3 days of the month. I don't care what you got going on. Come offline for the first 3 days of the month and recommit yourself and your time and your life to him. And then more importantly, if you can't commit the first 3 days, I just wonder what it would look like if you tithe 2.5 hours a day to him. Because that's literally 10% of 24 hours. And some of you, you'd be like, I don't even know. But if you calculated it, that would be, let's just say 2.5 hours. I think it's like 5 30-minute segments, right? Might be more than that. 30 and 30 is 60. So that's 1 hour. And then 30 and 30 is, yeah. So it's 5 30-minute sections. So would you be able to give God 5 increments of 30 minutes at a time throughout the day? So 30 minutes in the morning, maybe 30 minutes at lunchtime, maybe 30 minutes, before you leave work, 30 minutes before, maybe you just give them an hour at night, or you give them an hour in the morning, an hour at night, and 30 minutes in the middle of the day. And I've talked about that as well, but and I think I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to call it a quiet time, but something around time with God, something, because I think that we really need to get into a space where we get to recommitting ourselves back to him. Because some of the things that we desire is not because God is not speaking. It's not because God has not orchestrated it for us. It's really because we are not in a position to be able to hear and discern and then obey what God has already spoken. So I think it's important, right? You get to decide, right? It's a decision, right? Sometimes the discipline, the focus, and the commitment that you're lacking is really in the decision you have not made to put God first. And so I want to challenge you, and I really want to challenge you to ask God to reveal the areas of your life that you have not put him first. Because there's some areas that are really comfortable for you. We're like, oh yeah, I got that. But then God says, I want you to give me that. I want you to pause in that area. And that's the area that you probably need to surrender. That's the area that you probably need to lay on the altar. That's the area that you probably need to sacrifice and say, okay, God, I'm going to give this to you because I know if I give it to you, then what you have for me on the other side of it is that much greater. I know today was good, wasn't it? So is he really first? Right? Is he really first in your life? Only you can answer that question. Only you can be able to be truthful with yourself about it and be honest, right? Because you can say, what, I'm really good here, but I'm not good there, right? You might be good at worship, but you're not good at giving. When God says, hey, I want you to write that $1,000 check, and you be like, what? Okay, I'm just going to give $500. That's disobedience. If God tell you to give $25, but you only give 20, that's disobedience. That means that God is not really first in your life. You really don't trust him with your finances. So think about it. Just think about it and then come back and talk to me about it and let me know your thoughts about the areas of your life that maybe God is not first and you have constructed an altar, an idol around that specific thing, right? It could be an organization. It could be, your family, right? Your children could be an idol. You put them before God. Your spouse could be an idol. You put him or her before God. Your job could be an idol, or work in general could be an idol. You don't have time. You gotta do all the things, right? School can be an idol, right? Yes, I know you got work. I know you got the PhD or the master's or even undergrad, like you working on your thesis, your, an assignment or your dissertation, but where is God, right? Or maybe you make time for church. You doing all the things ministry wise, but there's no intimacy and there's no time with you and him. You've made the ministry an idol. You made your pastor an idol. It can happen. And it happens so subtly, y'all. Like, it's not something we intend to do. And so I want us to, as I'm reading and I'm studying and I'm taking this in for myself, really making sure that there are no areas in my life, sleep, rest, nap, things that I love, right? God said, get up. I know you're tired, but get up. I know you want to rest, but I need you to do this. Are you willing to lay that thing on the altar, to surrender and sacrifice it for the cause of Christ, right? For what God, would have you to do in this season. So I hope today's tea was good for you, child. Listen, I may go a little bit deeper, but for now, I think, you got the gist of it. But yeah, is God really first in your life? I want to know. Like, let me know, let me know. And yeah, let me know. So let me know, right? I'm just kind of basking in this right now and just really thinking about, how faithful God is and the fact that he wanted me to share this with you. And because he wants more time with you and he wants to be first. So with that being said, if that's something you struggle with, book a call. right? Book a 90-minute strategy session where we can kind of break down. We can look at your time. We can look at your schedule. We can look at your commitments. We can look at really ideally what God has been saying to you. Like, we can look at some things and we can create, a space for you to start putting him first, right? The other thing that I want you to do is text HEY to 833-447-0492 to be a part of the text community. If you're already part of my email community, I also want you a part of the text community. If you're part of the text community, make sure you're a part of the email community. And I'll find a way to share that next week. Maybe I'll create a bit.ly link so that you can join that as well. And maybe what I may do is create an auto responder in the text so that by joining the text community, you'll be automatically added. And I think I have something in there, but I want to double check because you might be able to do both via text. Okay. So yeah. So with that being said, I pray that you have an amazing week. I pray that you make time for God this week. I pray that when God speaks to you and he tells you to move some things out of the way for him. And let me just tell you, in the season that we're in, what you've been doing is not enough. God really is requiring more, and he's really requiring all. He does not want anything that is supposed to be his to be given to anything or anyone else. And so as God begins to draw you closer, as God begins to speak to you about relinquishing some things or giving him more time in a specific area, I really want you to obey. I want you to give him a full yes. Right. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you comment below. Like, there's so many nuggets that you could literally comment below on. Right. And then also, make sure you share this with 5 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Text them the link and say, hey, listen, child, you got to check out this week's Tuesday Tea with D. Right. Let me know in the comments that you did it, or tag me online. It'll be after the fourth when I'll check, but you can still tag me and let me know. But share this with someone, because I believe more people need to hear this message. And so 5 people who need to hear this message. Share them with them. Tell them to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell them to stay connected with the Tuesday Tea with D community. And it's so great because I saw somebody over the weekend who was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. And she was like, I'm watching the Tuesday Tea with D. And so if you're out there, Shayna, I just want to send you a shout out. And she's like, we love it. We love it. And so if you love Tuesday Tea with D and you're sharing it with your people, and, it just makes me happy, because sometimes, I don't know about y'all, you don't know if people really be watching the videos or if people really enjoy the videos. And so if you enjoy them, please share it. And then just let me know, right? Let me know like you're loving it, because that helps me continue. I'm going to continue to be obedient, but I get excited when, I see people and they're like, Tuesday Tea with D. Y'all start singing the song, right? So with that being said, again, thank you so much for being here and watching Tuesday Tea with D, supporting Tuesday Tea with D, supporting me. Being a part of my community and my tribe, and just, riding this thing out, right? We don't technically know where it's going to go, but, we do what we do until God says we're going to do something else. And so until God tells me to do something else, I'm here every Tuesday, unless I'm on vacation or something like that, or sick or whatever. But I'm committed to showing up every single Tuesday to help you get out of your own way and stop settling, so that you can show up for yourself in the same way that you show up for others. So of course, you know what's coming next. I'll see you next time on Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D. Tuesday Tea with D.